This is our panel on, it's gone through a couple different names. I think currently it's listed as Crystal Lake Memories. I also would like to call it the Jason Legacy. But we're sitting down with two different actors who've played Jason in their careers. We've got Jason Brooks, who is the writer and Jason in the fan film Friday the 13th Vengeance. And Glenn Ennis, who did a lot of the stunts for Jason in Freddy vs. Jason. And what we want to kind of analyze in this a little bit, and we have a mic down in the far right corner for people to come down and ask questions, is, this character's been around for 30 years almost. I think it's next year will be 30 years of Jason. So, or 40 years of Jason. What is the staying power of him? Quick introduction for me. I'm Matt of the Horror Movie Night podcast, and assisting me is Jacki of the Jersey Ghouls podcast. We're both big Friday the 13th fans, so of course we wanted to dig into these questions. So, we'll start with that. What do you guys think is the big staying power with him over all of these other characters?
I'd say it's probably mystery. You just don't get to find out much about him, I think. There's just, no matter how many times you've seen him and how many movies, you're still wondering what the heck's going on in his head and what's he going to do next, what's his motivations. Well, you find out some of his motivations. He hates kids that have sex. But but no, I think compared to a lot of other characters, he's not really revealed very much, and maybe that's what brings people coming back to find out more about him.
Yeah. Is this on? Yeah.
Yep.
So I think the same thing. And just the silence, he doesn't speak, so you don't get to learn a lot about him, what he's thinking, same thing. And so it's a silent killer that...
I'm sure it helps that Rob Zombie hasn't done a remake of it where we get an hour of his backstory as a young boy living with the Voorhees family as well.
Yeah, time will tell.
So what drew you guys to Friday the 13th? I know with Glenn, you did the Freddy versus Jason. Was that something that you were kind of, when you got that job, was very excited? Did Jason have a place in your heart? I
got to be completely honest. No, I saw the original Friday the 13th, and that was about it. And my horror background wasn't anything that stirred me or brought me towards it. It was a job at the time, and Ken Kersinger and I, both being stuntmen and actors, were applying for the job. And we were narrowed down to two, and we went to 2 or 3 more auditions where it was just the two of us. And over that time, we found out more about what the story was going to be, and we were both going, "Oh, I hope I don't get it. I hope you get it, because I want to do the stunts." and so it was just another job. But after the fact, of course, coming into the whole Jason family, realizing that all of you and so many people take it more seriously than that, it became a bigger thing and something that I truly cherish. But along that way, yes, as it turns out, Kenny got the job and I got the stunt job, and moving along from there, as we were doing the movie, we worked on it the same number of days, and at the end of a day, we'd say, "Hey, Ken, how'd you go? What'd you do today?" And he'd be like, "Well, I stood beside a tree, and I walked after some kids." He said, "What do you do, Glenn?" I said, "Well, I was on fire 3 times, and I flew through the air, and I nearly fucking died." And so it was a great pleasure to be a part of it. But beforehand, I got to be completely honest, it wasn't something on my radar that I could kind of pursue in any way. It just came to me because I'm 6'5".
All right. Now, with you, Jason, you kind of took what a lot of people would call a pretty ballsy move of making kind of an unofficial Friday the 13th. Not even kind of. You made an unofficial Friday the 13th movie. Yeah. So there has to be some love for the character there for that to be a choice.
Oh, absolutely. And growing up with the name Jason, of course.
Yeah.
You get teased a lot on every Friday the 13th and everything. So for a long time, I was kind of like, don't want to be a part of that. But then as I got a little bit older, I started embracing it more, and I really liked it, and I liked the films. And then when I was hearing about the project, Jeremy Brown and Dustin Montier, they were making a short film called Mythos at the time. And I heard about that, and I had been playing Jason for about a year at a haunted house, kind of doing that because I love the character, had my own costume, a Freddy versus Jason costume. And then people kept telling me, "Oh, you should be in a film. You look really good. You have the character down really well." So at the moment I heard about it, I reached out to these guys out in Idaho, said, "I want to be a part of this," sent in a tape. They sent me some script sides, and then said, "Do this." I did that, sent it in, and I got the part. So, and from that point, they realized I can do costumes and props and wardrobe and writing, and so I helped. I didn't write it; I helped write.
Okay.
And then produced and did a lot of things on the set. But it was definitely a passion project and something that grew way beyond what we could ever expect.
Yeah, and it's like a feature-length movie, too. It's not just a short anymore.
It's about 85 minutes.
Yeah, so there you go. If you've been wondering when you're going to get another Jason movie.
It's the most official, unofficial film.
So there's got to be an aspect of when you're playing someone like Jason, he's a silent character. And, you know, you watch all these movies, he's got these little moments that are almost mimish, almost silent film actor-esque. A lot of, like, shrugs and head tilts and stuff. What psychology goes into when you guys are working out that character to play him? You know, is there influences that pull in from that, or do you have a background in anything like that, like miming or anything?
I don't have a mime background. I hate mimes. They freak me out. They should be abolished.
We should just put them in tiny glass boxes.
My experience with it was, and of course Jason doesn't react much or show much. And my direction from Ronnie Yu, the director on Friday the 13th, or Freddy vs. Jason, sorry, was he would say, okay, so at this point you raise your eyebrows. I'd say, well, I'm wearing a mask. He says, yeah, I know you're wearing a mask. We won't see it, but raise your eyebrows. And he seemed to think that those kind of subtle nuances would come through in the overall performance. He would really be on top of, okay, now pretend you're smiling. I said, well, hockey mask again, you know. Yeah. And he said, no, everything that, and I don't think any other part of my body moved or changed, but he was adamant that, you know, he had emotions, he had moments, he had changes in his persona, situation, and they would come through if you were playing them behind the mask. I don't know if that came out for any of you, but...
Yeah, and it was similar for me. I mean, with the nuances, I do make the faces behind the mask. Not because I'm being told, but just I find myself doing it, even with the photo ops, you know, kind of making that angry face. But on set, you know, he's emotionless. He doesn't do anything. I feel like anything that's inanimate around him doesn't exist. He just walks through whatever. Nothing gets in his way. And then there's like little subtle moments. And there's one scene in particular I can't talk about yet. It's my favorite kill of the film.
Oh, tell us.
Okay, so. No, but it's,
you caved so quickly.
Yeah. No, I can't wait to talk about it.
Yeah,
it's my favorite.
awesome.
The mask I wore today in the photo op was actually used in the film during that scene. So the blood on there is from that kill. But yeah, I love this one, and it'll be memorable. But there's a lot of that subtlety in the movement in there, expressing emotion, and you kind of know what's going on in Jason's head without a lot of movement,
Okay.
I think. And so it's very minor. It's minor head tilt, minor shoulders, but also making the faces, I think, kind of helps.
All right, so I'm going to pass it over to Jacki if she has any questions, but I also, again, want to remind you guys that we are getting ready to take those audience questions. So if you have any questions, start heading on down to that microphone in the far right corner.
Yeah, you actually asked a couple of the questions that I had in mind. So yeah, we can actually start with the Q&A. Does anybody have a question? Does anybody want to ask anything? Please come down to the microphone.
Or just talk theory. Let's talk theory about. Okay, so here we go. While we're waiting for people to line up, obviously I'm going to assume that Glenn's is Freddy versus Jason, but I could be wrong. What is your guys' definitive Friday the 13th movie?
Yeah, that's it. That's the only one that I'm completely invested in. I left a fair part of my body on the ground in that movie, so I don't think I can compare anything else to that one. And although I've seen several other movies, I don't know the story in and out the way I know that one, so that's mine, obviously.
And those movies don't come close to the stunts work that you see in Freddy versus Jason.
I'm an actor, but I'm a stunt guy, and back then I was more of a stunt guy. And This was directed by Ronnie Yu, who's Hong Kong action guy, and the second unit director, Poon Hang Seng, Hong Kong stunt guy. So their background was stunts and action, which made the movie not a horror movie to me in my job. Was, you know, even though I was covered in blood a lot, it was all action, it was all hard hits, and that's kind of how I approached it, and that's how I still look back on it as an action movie as opposed to a horror movie. So my look on it might be a little bit different. I'd look at the other movies and go, and it is weird. I'm here because I'm a stunt guy. I wore the mask, but I don't think there's another movie that had probably many stunt days on it for a Jason double, whereas I was on this movie for 6 weeks straight doing stunts. So it was a different, it was a little microcosm in the whole Jason timeline where it just went to Hong Kong action, and that's why I was there. So.
And I can say, as a fan of the franchise, that until you had pointed that out, I never would have pieced that together. But you're absolutely right. That movie does play a lot more like an action movie over a typical horror film.
Absolutely. Almost everything I did, I was getting the crap beat out of me. And these Hong Kong guys were adamant that there'd be powder. They called it power powder. And they'd take like dirt or dust, fake dirt or dust, and put it on my shoulders and on my head. And so every time I took a hit, dust would fly off. Just to kind of accentuate the impact or whatever it was. And they were adamant that every single time I got hit, dust was going to fly off me. So it was always, oh, God, cut, stop, put dust on them. More power powder. It was a constant theme.
How about you, Jason?
Oh, what was the question?
Favorite of the franchise.
Oh, favorite of the franchise, yeah. I'd say part 6.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah, that one's fun. It's got a little bit of everything in it, and it's just the one to go back to.
They found a director who knew how to do comedic timing and horror, which is a very hard combination to do successfully.
They did, and we have the same thing in this one. If you like part 6, you'll love this film. So, and Tom McLaughlin, who directed part 6, has been a big part of this. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, we see there's someone lined up at the mic.
Hi. Hold on a second. So my question is, if you could play any other incarnation of Jason that you didn't get to play, which one would it be? And then the second part is, which is your favorite or least favorite Jason design?
I think we all know what the least favorite one is, and I'm not an expert. If I had to put the mask on in another role, it would have to be the very first one. I think I would love to have some kind of influence on how the whole thing started. Everybody else has put their stamp and their little quirk on everything along the way, but if you had a chance to be in that first one, wouldn't that have been great? To kind of everything that was based on it afterwards to be based on something that you did right off the bat. So that would be definitely my choice for another role.
Yeah, that was a good answer.
Was that your answer?
No, okay. But I want it to be now. No, I like 7. I like the design of 7. The menacing look of it. So that would be one I'd love to put the costume on and play. My least favorite, it's got to be the design, at least, is the Jason X pre-Uber Jason. Something about that one just, I don't know.
That's what I meant by we all know which one.
Yeah.
What was that?
Yeah, that movie was really just building to him becoming Uber Jason. They did not put a lot of effort into the pre-portion.
It didn't feel
Everybody
right.
has an off day.
I see someone else is lined up at the mic, so let's let them go.
My question is, how hard was it to put on any of the suits and masks for the costume? My second question would be, how hot did it get in it?
On fire?
Were you hot?
Yeah, you were set on fire, so let's start with you.
You know what, the cowl, actually, I had a lot of issues with my costume because I was on fire a lot and flying through the air a lot. And so the mask, the typical leather straps burned off and the mask fell off me, which was pretty dangerous. So they had to tie it on with steel wire. So they had to, I'd get the whole fire suit on, covered in gel, and then another layer of Nomex to protect me from the fire, and then the whole costume. And I had like 4 people helping me get in, because once you got the fire gel on, you got to get yourself rolling here pretty quick, because if it cools off, you get burned easier. So you want it to be cold. So there was about 5 people around jamming the coat on me, pulling the gloves on, and getting me ready to go. And then the mask would go on, and then it had to be tie-wired to the back and twisted up, which... And it did get very, very hot. There was a couple burns I did that were like 35 seconds, and in the end I was... Here's the thing about stunt fire. If you're on fire and you see guys flailing and running away, well, the fire flows away from you. The hottest part of a fire is the very, very tip of the flame. So when you're walking and moving, the tips are falling behind you, right? Flailing behind you. Well, I had to walk so slowly that all the tips were right up along my body, and so I got extremely hot very quickly. So it was a kind of a nasty fire burn in that way, super hot. I got burned a little bit once just on the back of my head, but other than that, made it through okay, but there was one particular one with to answer your question, the costume issue. The last scene on the dock where we got exploded off into the water, which was the most terrifying moment of my life. They had to wire the mask on, and then I flew and hit the water so hard that and there's quite a thick silicone rim around the entire outside of the mask to keep the fire out. And when I hit so hard, it actually moved that. And it was wired on tight, but it moved it about an inch up from the impact, and that went right over top of my mouth. So when I hit the water, I couldn't breathe through my mouth when I finally came up, and the mask was full of water, so I couldn't breathe through my nose. So I was in a bit of a bad state when I finally came to surface. They had safety divers there, and a guy grabbed me. But I was flailing around because I still couldn't breathe. And you can hear someone in the behind the scenes saying, "Relax, calm down, you're fine." But I wasn't panicking for that. I just still couldn't breathe. And it was like 5 or 6 seconds after the whole flight of holding my breath, because as soon as they light you on fire, you have to hold your breath, because if you breathe in fire and you die. So flew through the air, hit the water, came back up, and there was still several moments where I couldn't breathe yet, and I was thrashing around, and finally had to just kind of yank on the thing to get it dislodged from my mouth so I could breathe again. So that was a lousy part of the wardrobe. To answer your question, long story. True story, but long.
I should have gone first, because how do I follow that? No, that's all right. No, mine it's not too bad to put on. I've got a silicone hood as well, and I've got a somewhat similar story. I wasn't on fire, but being put in the middle of a lake, and we did a bunch of underwater shots. The silicone hood I wear is full face. It covers the nose. I can't breathe through my nostrils at all, so it's just my mouth. And then, but I was wearing a wetsuit and a whole bunch of stuff underneath, and once I got under the water, the silicone hood filled up with water like wearing a fishbowl, and then the mask and everything just kind of compressed, closed the mouth up, and so I'm just like sealed inside like a Ziploc bag full of water, and having to hold my breath under there and then wait for the water to get still so that I can kind of start to rise and walk out. And then once I got up, I've got mesh screens in the eyes also. So getting out of the water, suddenly every hole in the mesh is filled with water, can't see. So it was hard to tell if I was under, out, or anything like that. And then once I'm out, where am I walking? But it's fun.
It's never easy. As easy as it might look on the finished product, there's a lot of things in it that make it really difficult for the guy doing it, I got to tell you. As soon as you put a mask and that stuff in the equation, it's just, it's awkward and weird and difficult and sometimes quite scary. Like being underwater like that. Didn't they have to weight you down to keep you from rising to the surface because of your wetsuit? That's terrifying.
Because of the wetsuit,
being weighted down.
Yeah, because of the wetsuit being, makes you float, which we didn't realize till we were there because I'd never worn a wetsuit before. But we got there. It was a man-made lake, and it goes out a little bit, kind of slopes to about 5 feet, and then just drops. And so I go out as far as I can and realize, no, this drops to about 30, 40 feet. But I'm floating, and I couldn't get underneath. So they weighted me down with about 120 pounds of sandbags, tied them to my legs and my arms and everything, and I'm walking out there holding these, and I'm still a little bit buoyant. But getting on the edge of the cliff, I had to like dig my boot into the side of the cliff to kind of pull myself down under the water, and then hope I don't slide down the cliff. But made it. I'm here.
Yeah, there you are.
The shot looked cool. It got cut from the film, but
You never told me that.
behind the scenes, yeah. We'll be in the behind the scenes, hopefully.
So while we're waiting for some more people to line up over there, I want to ask, with you guys doing these characters like a Jason, is there someone else that you really, really would love a chance to play?
Go ahead.
I would love to play the Toxic Avenger
Nice.
and Darth Vader. I think those are my two big ones.
You know, in a lot of ways, I always feel like Toxie kind of just has like a Jason without the mask on look anyway. So that's an easy transition, right?
Absolutely, yeah. That'd be fun.
I would also on Star Wars. I've always thought something about wearing masks and things, but Chewbacca would be a fun one to do because I thought that guy.
Yeah.
I'm not tall enough, unfortunately, but that guy for a character that had a full face mask and everything had a lot of expressiveness and a lot of character that came through it, and I was always jealous of that one because Jason, and a few of my characters actually that I have my face covered because I'm obviously horribly disfigured. I should have my face covered in movies. That one was one that looked like would be a lot of fun to play with because he was just so expressive.
All right, we got someone else over there.
First question is favorite Jason kill, and then let's do that first, I guess.
Tell us about that one thing you can't tell us about, Jason.
That's a tough question for him, but I want to hear the answer.
So are you talking about just in the other movies? Or?
Yeah, in any of the films.
Man, I get asked this a lot. It's I still go with the nitro, the X smashing the face they freezing the face and smashing it on the counter. That one's a fun one. And in part 9, I like the tent where they're having sex and cuts the girl in half. I think those are probably 2 of my favorite.
I just realized I didn't kill anybody because they were having sex.
Yeah.
It wasn't a thing in Freddy versus Jason.
You blew it.
Yeah, mine. Again, I'm sorry, I'm going to my own, but there is a cornfield rave scene, and I killed somebody, and then the follow through opened up a keg of beer, and the keg sprayed me in the face. I thought, I'm at home here. This is where I belong.
My follow-up question is for Jason. I'm just curious, doing the film, did you have to navigate in the production? Did you have to navigate through anything with intellectual property or anything with legal issues cropping up with the character, or how does that process work when doing like a fan film?
Yeah, no, not yet. It's they have rules on their website about what you can and cannot do, how much money you can and cannot make to do a fan film and all that. So we've stayed within the rules. We went under budget on what they're allowing, and we've been trying to be extremely respectful to the franchise.
Now, I think everyone kind of knows that, like, the Friday the 13th actual ownership is in, like, a whole bunch.
It's a mess.
Do you think that helps a little bit with the fan films, too, is that they're way too focused on figuring out who owns it in the first place?
Well, there's a couple of ways to look at it. One is, it feels like, okay, it could be open.
Yeah.
And certainly it opens a door because there's no other content being made, so I think that's one reason why there's so much popularity with Friday the 13th fan films right now, is that there's nothing else there to kind of satisfy that. So this is what we have. On the other hand, you got people fighting over the rights.
Yeah.
And you don't want to get involved in that and have them say, no, you can't do that because we want money and we want money. But, so not sure. It feels different on different days.
Yeah, I was going to say the whole fan film thing is so interesting because you have stuff like your movie and Never Hike Alone that kind of gets put out, and there's a positive reaction from fans, but there's not like any legal discourse or anything. And then there's like, successful crowdfunding campaigns that get shut down before they can film a single frame because some studio exec saw that they were making a fan film on their intellectual property and pull it.
Yeah. It's typically you're not allowed to make more than $50,000.
Okay.
And it has to be used for the production. You're not allowed to pay any of the cast and crew. So there's a lot of rules within that the Paramount has on their website. You can go and follow up on.
Cool. I see someone else is lined up there.
Hi. Glenn, question for you. What is your favorite stunt that you've done in any of your movies? And Jason, is this movie directed in the same way as 6 that you could potentially watch it in black and white?
My favorite stunt, I hate to keep coming back to the Freddy versus Jason. I've done a bunch of stuff. I think outside of that, on Power Rangers, I did my first cannon roll or a pipe roll in a pickup truck. So I've always been wanting to do that. I've never had a chance to go flying upside down and turning over in a car. So that was pretty fun. But when I've been asked this question before, historically, I come back to Freddy versus Jason and the moment of terror being exploded off the dock on fire, lit on fire from head to toe, and then jerked by a cable 80 feet through the air to land in the water. And that was one of the most challenging mentally and one of the most terrifying things I've ever done. So as a stunt guy, you always look back to the thing that scared you the most, that you managed to overcome. So that was my favorite for sure.
Those keeping score at home, his favorite moment was almost drowning. So
While on fire?
No, it was my favorite stunt up until when I thought I was going to drown. Then it wasn't as fun.
Let's see. And then as far as, I haven't thought about watching this in black and white, but I've been trying to think of how that would translate, and I think it would. Like I said, Tom McLaughlin, he's had a huge part of this with the editing and consulting on the film and the script. And I think if you love Six, you're going to love this film. It's in the same kind of family, and when you watch it, I've seen the raw cut several times, and it takes you back, and it makes you feel like you're back in that universe, back in the 80s where Part 6 came out, even though it's 30 years past that, but it does feel very much like home. So,
I think the black and white would translate to a lot of the Friday the 13th films, don't you? The spookiness, and it'd be interesting to see a lot of them made black and white just for a different look.
It's a monster film.
Yeah.
It'd be good.
So I'm curious for both of you, what drew you guys to stunt work?
I was playing professional rugby for a lot of years all around the world, and at 36 I retired and went, what am I going to do? And I moved back to I'd been playing in Japan for 10 years, and I moved back to Vancouver, and my younger brother was a stuntman. So he said, you've been falling down for a living for a long time. Why don't you just keep doing that? So that's how I started, and I didn't know what else to do. And then my size, and there are not many big stunt guys doing it, falling down. So that's kind of how I naturally fell into it, I guess. Thug number 2, FBI guy, sheriff, cop, SWAT team guy, those kind of things kind of got me started in the stunt world and into acting.
Nice.
Yeah, I was inspired by the fact that we had no stunt guy. so I just, we had to do some stunts, and I thought I can do that. Let's practice it a few times safely, and then and that's what we did. So.
Do you want to do more after doing that, or was that a one and done for you?
Yeah, I think I'd do more.
Nice. Very cool. Well, I guess unless there's any more questions, I was going to wrap it up with one last question, I guess, which is, do you guys have any advice for anybody who actually wants to try to do stunts?
You go ahead first.
Yeah, you're the one that kind of got pulled in.
Yeah, take a class, learn what you're doing. We had a stunt girl on our set, and she was great. And she had taken some stunt classes, but once she got done, she realized, she's like, I want to go back to school. I want to learn some more. Learn how to fall better, learn how to do this better. So being on set and actually doing it, she realized I still have more to learn. She wasn't, to be safe. So, and that's the thing too, is safety is always first. We rehearsed everything over and over and over again in a safe environment, and then kind of graduated up to the set. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Get some training, but also position yourself beside stunt people and follow them around, ingratiate yourself to them. Help them out, try to just learn from them and be beside them, because no matter how many schools you go to, the only way to actually get a job is for someone to vouch for you. So that's the next step, is to get some training and then get beside some stunt people, and it might be a while before you get a job, but at least they'll know you. And then when the right job comes around, they'll go, hey, I know the person for that. And that's how pretty much we all get our start. Somebody has to risk their reputation and their career to hire you and make sure that you don't screw up and make them look bad. So.
All right, well, that's it for this panel. So let's give these guys a round of applause. Obviously, come by and check out their tables throughout the rest of the weekend at this con. And stay tuned. At about 3 o'clock, there'll be a Q&A with Joe Bob Briggs. 4 o'clock, we've got the Frog Brothers reunion from the Lost Boys. At 5 o'clock, you're going to get to see Dr. Satan in full makeup as they do the transformation. And then at 6, there'll be a Frankenhooker Q&A. So stay tuned and come check it out.
Thank you very much, everybody.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.